Hey everybody, welcome back to another Crash Course video. Today we're gonna take a look at Redfor Armoured, and there's a lot of choices in this deck, as there's in every mixed red or blue deck, so let's get into it. Obviously you only have 45 activation points, so you have to be really careful with how you use them. CV wise, I run something like this. 7 CVs isn't amazing, but they're all decently survivable, and you don't really have anything too amazing. You don't get infantry, and the IV CVs, they aren't too great either, so it's not an amazing choice when it comes to CVs. Supply truck and fob, you can possibly run this without a fob, maybe 2 supply trucks, or even just 1 card of supply trucks and nothing else. It's up to you, depending on if you want to use heavy artillery or not. Infantry wise, let's actually start with this. Proletariat 90, your best heavy AT you get. You can also run Panzerjäger if you prefer like a BMP2 or a BMP1 or something, or a 5-pointer with 2 front armor, even though it's slow, but this one is slow as well. I like the Proletariat 90, the BVP, gives them a bit of speed as well and a nice IFV. Of course it increases the price a bit, but I think that's still worth it. Card of Base Mechanism 1 in the PvP just for the cheap PvP spam is obviously one of the best IFVs in the game, if not the best, at least for the price. And for spam infantry with Armoured, you obviously always want spam infantry. I mean, generally you want to, but especially with Armoured as your meat shields. Card of Shanxi in the 5-pointer with 2 armor. You can also go with Yakari 90 in the BTR 50, or even the base ones. They're gonna perform better against infantry, and the 90s of course enforce have that 16 AP 20 RPM, but the 5-point is just much slower and has only 1 side armor, so that's why I prefer the Shanxi. I do like to run a card of Iglas. Obviously can't skip them, they're not mandatory, and actually skipping them and only running 4 cards of infantry might potentially be preferable, but for the sake of this video I'm gonna put these in here. And then card of ATGMs, Conquers them, work fine. Fagots work fine. Fagots in a 5-pointer is probably the best way to run those. For this deck, I'm gonna run the Finnish base Conquers in the BMP1. I just think that's a very comfy combination. Support, your AA isn't too amazing. I just run 2 cards of Taurus. They're gonna be fine. They're gonna be your all-round AA. And here and there, they're just going to be supplemented by either Iglas or the card of PGC 80s. You can, of course, also run the Book M1 or Cop M4 or Strelatan M's, or even the Spag here. Tunguska M as well, if you're scared about that. Maybe a card of Taurus and Tunguska M's, or Book and Tunguska M's. But I think the Tor, if you just run the Taurus, and you don't have to always have some weird dilemmas, or your Tunguskas are all dead, but you would have another one. And the Tor can basically do anything decently well. 7 HP of course means it can one-shot 1 armor, 10 HP planes. Good versus healers and planes, so your all-round purpose stuff. And since you of course don't get wheels for virtually anything, you gotta live with the tracks. And the PGC 80s is just amazing all around. Mortar, of course, is always good to have. And then, whether you want heavy artillery or not, is of course up to you. If you want, either go for the Buratino or for the Pion or Malka. Pion has more per card, but Malka has a longer burst length. Mista can also work, but these are really your main options. Buratino, of course, only 1 per card and has to be relatively close to the front line, so that is its main downside. You can also just run 2 Prams. I think if you don't run a fob, I would just go with Pram spam. It's very effective. Don't underestimate that. But for the sake of this video, I'm just gonna put in the Buratino. Tank wise, there's 2 ways to run Red Armored. You either focus on M84As or you focus on the base T80. That does mean you can't run both, but one of them is going to be your core unit. That said, you still want something heavy. I like the OBR 89. 3 on elite should honestly be enough. You shouldn't really run into too much trouble. You're actually tank killing. Like if you go up against super heavies, you wouldn't really use this anyway to deal with it. You're gonna use M84As, or you're gonna stun, build a smoke cloud, and run up with like 4 stack of T80. That said, I'm gonna put in 1 card of the 84A and 2 cards of the T80. You want, if you run T80s, you need 2 cards, definitely. Same with the M84A, if they're gonna be your main tank. But if you wanna run 2 cards of T80s, I would still put in something between the T80 and the OBR89. You can also run the OBR87 if you don't want to run the M84A. I would definitely suggest putting in at least 1 card of these, but if for personal reasons or you don't have the DLC, you know, OBR87 as like a bridge between the 89 and the T80 can also work. And T72A is like your, if you don't want to run T80s at all, I would definitely put this in. It's gonna be a nice flank tank. Although you don't need this because you also have the Pion PSV. The T64BV can also be okay. And the Mati, if you want to spam like very cheap 17 AP, but the speed and lack of stabilizer and optics, I think it doesn't make it too great. But lastly, a card of Chariot here, upweighted. On elite, they're gonna be very accurate, and for the price, have a pretty good gun and very good armor and acceptable speed and autonomy. Recon, there's not too much to choose from. I like to run a Recon helicopter. In this case, the Alouette, because it's very cheap. You don't get the header, of course, but 35 points for very good optics. Even if it's not very fast, it's a pretty good deal. Liren are gonna be your best Recon infantry. Unfortunately, you don't really have access to anything other than 5-point trucks and garbage helicopters. Sometimes something like this, but Grenzer I don't like. And then the cards of Pion PSV as your Recon tank. If you somehow somewhere have some AP left at the end, you might want to also put in this, but I'm gonna need the activation points. Nothing in the vehicle tab though. Once again, if you have the space, the Polo can be a good choice. There's no real need for something like this or the SC100 because you have the Chariot here, or this because the PGC-80 exists as well. Helicopter tab, just a card of BP. It's a very good all-around helicopter. Up or downward, it's up to you. I like to downward. Sometimes you just need those extra helos, and you don't really have amazing choices either way. The M35 can also work if you prefer to have more missiles while having, you know, the missiles being worse as well as not having the AP gun. Also, the VP carries more rocket pods, so it's really up to you what you find more useful. Planes, the Redfor mixed plane tab often looks very similar. What you usually see all the time is a 27M, of course. As the main ASF, you typically see the MiG-29, the Polish one. And then I like to run as my last plane the Lazur as a Helo Hunter. Other options, of course, are the Hawk, the Czech MiG-29 Bomber, J7H, even if you want to do something like that, although it's not the most survivable. If you want, of course, if you don't want to run the 27M because you think, it's 1 per card, too spicy, you can run like a Syria, of course, 27K even, or the Orao is a very good choice as well for something like medium tank deletion. But I like to have the 27M just to have some as close to a guaranteed super heavy killer as you can have. And of course, it also helps with the fact that you don't get any R77s other than the 27M or the MiG-29M. Oops. So it also bolsters your ASF department. So does the Lazur to a certain extent. But if you don't really mind not having a Helo Hunter and want even heavier into ASFs, I would suggest the MiG-23ML or the PD. I'm not a huge fan of this, but I guess you could run it. Seed is not really necessary because you typically don't have too many anti-ground planes anyway. So this is really wasted activation points, and planes are very expensive in that area. And or L17K instead of Lazur, of course. I just prefer the Lazur. And yeah, that's really it. Yeah, hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something. And I'll hopefully see you next time. Later.